Okay, how's everybody doing? So I hope everybody's had a great weekend. This is 50 Pips, 19th of May, 2013. I'm not making any trade calls, recommendations. You're responsible for your own trades. And the fact that you're listening to this means you've read, you understand, you accept all the disclosure disclaimers on the site, understanding that this is just for educational purposes only. So guys, let's see what's going on. As a lot of people keep on asking me to try and keep these YouTube ones not too long and just to pick up the most interesting charts. So I'm just going to stick with four charts, which I think I'm going to be watching. I think are potentially the most interesting ones for the week, and also some I got some questions on. So we'll go very quickly on USD CAD, Crude, Aussie, and Euro, and let's see what happens. Okay, so first things first, the thing to keep in mind on CAD is that we were looking at a potential move back down, right? So we had this repeated failure at the 0270s, right? And we started to move back down. And what we said is we were looking for a move back into parity and into the 200-day. Also, what we said, once we were hovering down here, after you've been in a good move, you don't want to hang around for the last pips because the last pips can be the most expensive, right? So there's no need to be greedy trying to milk the last pips out of this if you were short off 0270s, right? Now, also equally what we said, if this downtrend is going to continue very aggressively, the most likely place for this to get sold against once we see some buyers coming in, protection of the parity marker, and some profit taking from the short side is to see a sell-off on any move back up into the 0150s, right? And which coincidentally, this was also in line with the 50 back of the most recent move. So we sold off back into here. We retrace back up right here, and bam, we get the sellers come in again, keeping it down at the 50 back and at this pivotal level. So it's pressure on. This is looking, pretty good for the shorts. Then what happened? Bam, we started this big move up, and all of a sudden the dynamics changed. So we said, okay, well, let's see what happens. It clears we took a lot of stops out. We moved to the upside, and then we got this candle here, right? I was saying on Twitter, keep an eye on the daily close, keep an eye on the daily close. Once we got this, I was looking to play the short side again. This looked like a very nice candle for continued short side, but we had data towards the end of the week, and basically, we just ripped, took all the stops out, and right back into highs, okay? So what's very interesting for me going into next week is how we're going to open and how we're going to behave around these 0270s, right? And by that, what I mean is the market going to just look for stops upside in this higher end of this range and find them, and also find additional buyers to continue and keep the pressure on? Or is this going to be potentially a very complex stop and another failure at highs? Okay, so what you want to watch is, first of all, the key level for the week is 0270s, and this is the level I'd be looking at for a daily close perspective, right? Bull bear line. So just to give you some kind of an idea what to expect or going into the day, right? Previous day closes above the 0270 should be bullish for the pair, and the closes below should be a bit heavier, right? So that's the midpoint I'm looking at for the week. To the downside, if we don't get a daily close this week back below 0150s, this is going to be looking again for more upside. And to the upside, I'll be looking at this high range, which is 0310s into 0360s. Keep in mind that if we keep on closing above these 0270s, if we get some momentum and we break above, then the next level I'll be looking at is 0440s into 0490s, okay? So again, I think very interesting. The focus point is going to be the 0270s going into the week, okay? Now, Crude, what's going on Crude? Basically, I just kept on, I was still talking about these hundreds in Crude, and basically, it's somebody was saying, are you being a bit stubborn on this? And I'm saying, well, I'm just looking at the chart, right? It's not a question of course, everybody might end up having some kind of a bias, right? But you have to be, and I try to work very hard to just be neutral on the chart. And if you look at this basically on the daily, and let's make this a bit bigger. By the way, actually, the weekly, you can see how we closed last week. Again, very very long wick, buyers coming in 2 weeks in a row. We attempted to take downside out, but the buyers coming in and closing it right back at those highs, okay? But if you look at it on the daily, you can see that every time we've come down, we found buyers coming in, and we keep on making higher lows. And especially this, this action is interesting in the sense that it's very tricky to get more upside. So clearly the market is uncomfortable breaking higher here, or at least it's not finding any new buyers. It's not attracting any new buyers. It's most likely either attracting sellers or profit taking. But the other thing to keep in mind is that all the dips, look at this wick, look at this wick, have found aggressive buyers, highlighted by the 2 weekly closes, right? This week and last week. So again, unless we can get some downside pressure on this daily, and by that I mean a daily close this week back below 92.30s, okay, unless we can get a close, then to me this is looking like we have to respect the upside resistance, because it needs to be respected because sellers are there. But unless we can close back below those 92.30s, to me it still looks like we want to take a stab at 97.40s. And if we manage to get daily closes, it's right here, above those 97.40s, then be looking for those 100s to attract. Then another chart we don't usually look at, but I think is interesting, I've been talking about this one since last week, really, actually 2 weeks ago. And it's basically this pattern. You can look at this on, so Aussie NZD, you can go back even on a monthly, and you see that it's very interesting because we've bounced on a 200 moving average here on the monthly chart. And on the weekly, we're back down into this support zone that has a lot of structural support here, right? And we start to see some basing pattern, right? We tried to bake lower, we couldn't get any traction, then bam, we tripped more stops, and then the week before last, we got this positive close, and this week that just closed here, once again, we tried to trigger lower, but we could not get any more downside momentum, okay? So I like to put one of these up every now and again, just for some bigger moves or some swings to keep an eye out for. And basically here the outlook is keep an eye if we base here, and if we keep on getting positive closes on the weekly, and we start to close we get a weekly close back above the 121.20s, right? We start closing back above. This could be the start of a, it's not going to happen today because it's a weekly, but a rotation possibly all the way back up into this 200 on the weekly that's going to start coming down. But basically this could be the start of a nice little move up. So something to keep an eye on. I think it's an interesting chart. And last but definitely not least, Euro. What's going on in Euro? So we have this very familiar, so first of all, clearly pressure on. We closed the week pressure on, and we have these familiar levels, right? We talked about this range, and we said, you can go back in the previous recordings. I said, it's a wide range, but that's just the way it is, right? It's a wide range. There's been a lot of volatility, but these are the key levels from a weekly perspective, right? And those levels are the 132 to the upside, the 128 to the downside, and the 130 in the middle. Okay, so we've got 200 pips to the upside, 200 pips to the downside. So from a weekly perspective, it's all about closes outside this range, okay? So broadly, and it's a wide range. Again, this is a weekly, but globally, we could just see some consolidation of some whippy action here. What we really need to start to see is weekly closes either above 132 or below 128. Clearly, as we're hovering here around those lows, 128 is going to be the focus tonight, okay? What I would say, the focus for me is if you just get on a 15-minute chart, I would suspect that as we go into the open, I haven't looked at the charts yet, we'll probably see some kind of a gap down, and the market will try and take out these stops. Keep an eye, if you want, look back on your chart on last Friday, repeat of what happened, right? And if we come down, we gap down, and we take out stops, then we should see some more downside. We might go into Asia holding below 128. This should be heavy. But if now we see a little gap down or an attempt to take out those 128s, and we can't take those out, or we can't take those out into London, then expect to see some profit taking and a little move up. Just a replay of what happened last week, essentially, okay? And so if we were to go back on this weekly, If we start to get daily closes below those 128s, what I would expect is, at least short term, is the market to try and play out this most recent fib move. And this move is basically that sell off from 137s into these 127s. 50 back got sold here with a 123 extension coming in at the 125 level. So I'd expect that to be the main target for this week. In terms of the bears, if they can get action below the 128. Keep in mind, you have to respect this previous low that's holding here. Okay, this is going to be an interesting bull bear line. So on the way back down, to attempt to go into the 125s, this is going to be a big level. But again, don't forget the gap down if we fail to gap up. And to the upside, it's still all going to be about those 32s. So we discussed about these big opposing swing moves, and at the moment, it looks like the shorts are really are in control, right? The move to the the downside was these sellers coming in at this 50 back, looking for a break back below. Just do it this way. Highs to low, 50 back, this would be looking for a move back down, break back into the 113s, etc. That's the fight, and they're getting traction. And the opposing move are the longs, which came in supporting this 50 back. So you see clearly what's happened here. They got triggered, but then the shorter move, short, got hit. So now clearly it's under pressure. So this is the fight zone this week. The shorts need to take that out. The longs are desperately in need of a defense. You know, if we get close below here, then it's going to be very, very heavy. We could see more shorts coming into the market. We could see some more liquidation. So that's clear. And again, if we break back to the upside, chop range, 132, 130, 128s, okay? So let's see what we get going into the week. I hope that was clear. If you enjoy the content, just don't be shy about sharing it or retweeting it. Have a great one. I'll see you guys for London Open. Thanks for listening, and take care, guys. Bye-bye.